The road from virtual to reality starts here, where tonight for the virtual Richmond Raceway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the 2019 eNASCAR Ignite Series powered by iRacing. So happy that you're with us here on RaceBot TV and the iRacing esports network as we get set to see who the next up-and-coming sim racer is as we welcome you into the booth tonight. As always, myself, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince upstairs with our director, Randy Cheneth, bringing us to you. And Justin had so much fun with this series 1 year ago. It is back for the 2019 iteration of the Ignite Series, and the first notable change you'll see tonight is we are racing modifieds for the playoffs this season, round number 1 of 5 this evening.
Absolutely, a whole different beast in the Legends. A lot of these drivers were racing in the regular season. A lot of speed for these machines, and they're going to be pretty hard to handle for much of this race. But it's going to be a good test for a lot of the competitors throughout the postseason to see if they're able to balance the tire wear, along with the speed to try and make passes and find their way to the checker flag this postseason.
For a lot of these drivers, maybe their first time at a big stage like this. For somebody who has been through the ringer, though, we are now standing by with your 2018 eNASCAR Ignite Series champion, Zach Novak, who, of course, you see here on Tuesday nights with the Peak Series, a driver with Roush Fedway Racing. Zach, thanks for joining us this evening. You've been in the position that all of these guys are in as of a year ago, having come out on top of our 2018 campaign. Just what was that experience like, getting the opportunity to race with a racing scholarship, and kind of where your career has gone from then?
Oh, it's been surreal ever since. A lot of opportunities have came up, and a lot of things have gone my way, and it's been an incredible experience. iRacing helped out a lot with everything from the prizes to the trip that we did in Martinsville. I had an awesome time with Otto there, and these kids, I don't know if they even understand what they're in for with this. It's a really surreal experience.
Very different as well from what you're doing in your typical ride, of course. Race winner in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. But the way this works, and it's just like we're at a local short track on a Saturday night. We're talking about heat races, short runs, up to as many as 300-plus drivers competed in the regular season. Only the top 50 made it to this point. It is such a fine margin that, kind of digging back on your experience with this series last year, what would you say to these drivers as they get set to strap in for the first race of the playoffs?
Well, I think my biggest piece of advice would just be to keep calm, take it easy, don't rush things. I kind of put myself in that scenario at the beginning of the playoffs last year, and I just rushed myself way too much and tried way too hard. And I just took a step back and chilled out, and that propelled me to win the Stafford race and gave me a lot of momentum going into the final race at Martinsville. Obviously, the cars are a lot different. The Legend is a lot different from the Modified, and I know a lot of these guys have been practicing in various leagues and practice sessions and whatnot, preparing for this. But that's my biggest piece of advice, is just
I think they're going to have those nerves, and then once the green flag flies, I think they'll be back to business as usual. Zach, we'll let you jump out of here, but again, we really appreciate your time. But again, congratulations, of course, on becoming the first ever driver to win the Ignite Series championship as it begins its second season. It'll be fun to see where this series goes and where your career continues to go, but we'll catch you in a couple of weeks for Peak.
Thanks, Evan. I just want to say look to all these guys, and congratulations on your accomplishment. This is big for everybody.
Big night for many drivers, maybe the biggest sim race they have competed in thus far. That is your 2018 eNASCAR Ignite Series champion, Zach Novak. Let's talk, Justin, about what these drivers are racing for. It is still a $10,000 racing scholarship to the eventual champion. It also comes with a test day in both a Legends car and a NASCAR Pinty's Series car. But again, only one of these 50 drivers will take that prize home.
And that's a huge opportunity, of course, to get an opportunity to test in real life. It can open up a lot of potential doors, potentially, on how you do in that test. So it's going to apply a lot more pressure, I think, for a lot of these drivers that, in some cases, or looking for their first real-world experience. In the case of some other drivers, looking for their one big break to get their foot in the door to build for the rest of their career. So to have these opportunities, not just the scholarship, but the test day with Canada's best racing team, could be absolutely game-changing for their careers.
And the practice session now winding down to a close, so drivers are going to head into qualifying. Qualifying will dictate in which heat race they actually end up starting in. So let's talk about tonight's event format. It will be the same for this evening, as well as Bristol, Thompson, and New Hampshire. As we race with 50 cars, the Martinsville finale will only see the top 30 to points advance. It'll be a slightly different format, but the way it looks tonight, Justin, is we have 50 cars, up to 50 cars, making a start in this race. That means that we will have 5 different heat races of 10 laps and 10 drivers apiece. That's where the night begins, with only 3 of those cars, the top 3, advancing into the main right away.
Yeah, and track position is so key, not just in qualifying, but of course in these heats. Remember many times last year, Evan, where drivers looked strong throughout the season, and then we've seen in the final shootout such as Martinsville, guys like Garrett Lowe have a bad time in their heat race, they're stuck towards the back for the feature race. So it puts tons of pressure, in fact, to have a good qualifying run and finish inside the top 3 to try and advance your way directly into the A main, because if you don't, you have to deal with those LCQs of 12 laps apiece. And then on top of that, get through the drivers that already advanced to the heats. It's going to apply a lot of pressure for the qualifying and the heats as the night goes on.
And the awfully difficult thing about those last chance qualifier races is the fact that only the race winner from each of 2 LCQs that we will see is actually going to advance into the main event this evening. So we'll take the top 3 from all of those 5 heat races, and then of course that will give us basically the bulk of our field, as that'll get us close to the total number. And then the 12 lap LCQs, which again is still a very short distance, is going to have as many as 17 or 18 cars in them. Only the winner of each of those, again, has an opportunity to go to the main event. The main event will see 30 laps run to the end, so it'll be an exciting night of action. But I think the big thing to keep in mind, and listen, these drivers are used to it, and Zach mentioned that these modifieds are very different. We used the Legends cars all of last season. These guys have been driving in the Legends all regular season on the iRacing service to this point. 341 drivers competed in the regular season. Only the top 50 made it to this eNASCAR Ignite Series powered by iRacing playoff. These are short races. They've been doing the heats all season long. It is a bigger and bulkier car. Practice over the last few weeks has certainly been critical, so they know that at the drop of the green flag, you have to get going. You can't really get away with making mistakes and recovering.
Exactly, especially since if you look at the times on the left side of your screen from qualifying, for example, there's only a couple tenths of a second separating these drivers, not just in qualifying, but during some of the runs throughout the practices in the lead up to tonight's race. There's not a lot of time separation, so that puts a lot of importance on some of the drivers to get their way through the field and be able to handle their car. Briar LaPrade, one of the competitors this season, told me this, and this is the best way to put it, I think. Getting runs off the corner is going to be the decider on if a driver can pass or not tonight. We'll have to see which drivers are able to take advantage.
And with all of that, the qualifying session has drawn to a close, and we're ready to go racing in heat race number 1. So let's go down and take a look at your Race Spot TV starting grid, and it is that best car in queue. Parker Retzlaff on pole position with a 21.594. He will start heat race number 1 alongside Sean Lejeune, who will start in 2nd position. Donovan Strauss rolling off in 3rd position tonight. Lucas Cram will join him on road to starting to 4th, and it is Trayton Lapkovich rounding out your top 5.
6th position, Kenny Zeems will start on the outside row with Alex Gratz start alongside Preston McNeil. Andy Trupiano rounds out the 9 drivers, a part of the 13 returnees for the 2019 edition of the postseason.
Let's talk a bit about this Richmond Raceway. Of course, a call out to Richmond Raceway Esports, who have been a big supporter of this eNASCAR campaign, especially fielding their team at the Peak Series. It is a 3/4 mile D-shaped oval, 14 degrees of banking in the corners. Is, compared to some of the other racetracks we're going to see on the calendar, just a lot less than Bristol, but a lot more than New Hampshire.
Yes, indeed. Right now, Richmond, of course, a three-quarter mile short track for about 30 years now. And it's a track where the drivers have talked about it's going to be tough to enter on entry. It's a tight entry, very loose off racetrack for these drivers today with a fairly hot track to deal with this evening. But it's also going to be one where the bottom is going to be key, I think, for much of the race tonight to try and not just make passes, but be able to maintain track position. You lose that bottom, you might get freight trained all the way to the back of the field.
Just waiting on the field to roll here to get underway with heat race number 1. Again, this is the first of 5 heat races that we will see this evening. All of these heat races containing up to 10 cars. Only the top 3 advance into the main event. That will maybe be the race where we actually have to start talking about keeping that race car underneath you and being a little bit conservative out of the get-go. 30 laps, a lot longer, of course, than this 10-lap distance. But the field begins to roll, and we get set again for the start of the NASCAR Ignite Series powered by iRacing playoffs. And you mentioned some of the returning names, Justin. The window of drivers eligible for this series, 13 to 16-year-olds, is going to continue to shift out. So as this series progresses through the years, it's almost a guarantee that there will be a consistent pipeline of new faces coming into the series. And I really look forward to seeing which of those drivers really stamp their mark early on.
And the thing is, for a lot of the drivers that returned in, some of them were in the back half of the top 25 in the regular season last season. This year, guys like Maroney Jr., the regular season champ, they're at the top of those point standings. So they have improved as the year has gone on, as they've gained more experience in the iRacing service, and learned, I think, from being a part of the Ignite Series in 2018. And that showed in their performances in the regular season this year. Now the question is, can they carry it through the postseason, Evan?
Lights go out on top of the iRacing.com official pace car, and we are doubled up and set for the green flag in heat race number 1. Again, 3 drivers of the nine going to make it on through. The bottom 6 will have to deal with at least one of the 2 LCQs later on this evening. It is the return in the 2019 edition of this eNASCAR Ignite Series powered by iRacing, and we are happy that you're a part of it with us here tonight on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Pace car added in, and it is Parker Retzlaff's field to control as he brings him at turn 4, and we say let's go racing at Richmond. Heat race number 1 is green.
And a clean start, it looks like this time, as Retzlaff got immediately to the bottom and has already taken advantage of a lot of clean air up in the front of the field and is pulling on away at his number 1 machine. It's side by side though for second.
It's Strauss on the inside. He's trying to get out of the battle for second. He ate a Lucas Cram with a big slide that time, but at turn number 4 has to reel his car back in. Strauss clearing for second, and now the battle was on for the final transfer spot, but the 28 of Kenny Zeems just can't stay in the gas on the inside. He'll now block down low as the nod of Andy Trumpiano dives down. He'll take that spot away, so a couple of bobbles by Zeems kicks him back, and third now belongs again to the 19 of Sean Leisure.
And Trumpiano might be one of those drivers to watch throughout this postseason, one of the returnees, and someone that has multiple road records to his name across this service. He can make some passes in quick. Already gaining up about a car length and a half already to the bubble spot in this past lap alone.
And that's the key, the good start. Of course, we mentioned that Zeems had an opportunity to battle there, had the mistake, and he falls down and back into P6 after it looked like he was going to be the hard charger. You're already almost halfway through this race, this time by 4 laps of 10, and heat race number 1 going to be completed, and everybody's single filing themselves out. And of course, in order of qualifying, you would expect the cars up front to be the better ones out of the gate, and Retzlaff has been burning it to him off of the start here. Still the fastest car on the racetrack. He's almost a second ahead of Donovan Strauss, who's still P2. Sean Lugier scored in 3rd position. Is seeing the nod of Trumpiano creep it up in the rear view mirror. That battle for the transfer spot, 4 car lengths at halfway home.
And now it's going to be curious if Trumpiano can attack the bottom line and try and take that spot away from Leisure. It's going to be able to be a mix of balancing that looseness off the corner while trying to make sure you don't hit the outside wall or the inside fence by losing the back end tires. Trumpiano seems to be a bit more comfortable. He is about 1/100th of a second quicker, now 5/100ths quicker last time by than Leisure.
So he is creeping up at number 19 machine, but I don't know if he's going to be able to keep that pace through this. And if he is, he's going to have limited time to the bumper. And of course, these modifieds are maybe a little bit more built for contact than the Legends cars that these guys have been racing all regular season. With a big chrome horn on the bumper, the 9 cars looming. He looked inside. The 19 shut the door. They'll be both on the yellow line this time. Only one of them has a ticket into the main event, and it'll be 2 laps to go at Richmond this time by.
And it's going to have to take a good corner exit. Trupiano tried to launch it off the corner on the bottom. I think he actually clipped the apron a bit. He's going to have to somehow force his way to that bottom line to have a shot for the transfer spot while making sure he does it cleanly. Mind you, these machines, you don't want to end up causing chassis damage by trying to go too aggressive and banging somebody's tires and yourself potentially into the fence.
White flag in the air, way out in front of the field is Parker Retzlaff, who started on pole position. He has led all the way through this one, and barring any major issue, he will take this one easily down in 3 to 4, but battles for the transfer spot as we follow this fight into 3 and 4. There's the bumper. Trupiano gives it to the 19 Leisure, looks to the inside. Retzlaff wins, Strauss is second, and Sean Leisure hangs on. The bump and run came, but it wasn't enough, and a 19 car takes that final ticket into the A main, finishing on the podium.
Strong finish for Leisure to hold on to the battle. The drivers who advance on Retzlaff also moving on. Is Leisure along with Strauss. Also amongst the drivers inside the top 10. Trupiano in 4th position, Cram in 5th, 6th is McNeil, 7th in Gratz, 8th Traden Lapsevich, 9th is Kenny Zeems. He finished as a DNF.
Zeems was the only driver to actually not make it to the end of this one, so those bottom 6, 4th on back. We will see them later on this evening for the LCQs. Down on trackside again, though, heat race number 2. Let's take a look at the starting grid. It is Riley Thompson on pole position for this one. He'll be joined by the 12 of Dylan Alt in P2. Dylan Parker starting 3rd tonight with Aaron Mulrooney Jr. rolling off at 4th position. Colton Salick, the number 10 car. You'll find him in P5.
Car 41, Presley Soares in 6th position. Behind him, Spencer Dickinson and Sean Wisnowski, and Ty Ippolito rounds out the 9 drivers in heat race number 2. Looking to be a competitive one this time too.
The one thing that we learned from that first heat race, Justin, and I think the drivers in this one obviously took note of, and I'm sure the drivers expected this to be the case, but the outside line, a very difficult place to find yourself in. So if you're that 12 of Dylan Alt and you don't get a very good jump, you really want to get down in line before that 13 of Parker gets there. If he gets alongside you, makes you fight for second, you can get pinched on the outside line, and it can go downhill pretty quickly.
And Donovan Strauss, I was talking with him before this race, told me exactly the track position again is key. And again, you want to be on that bottom side to be able to not just hold on to it, but to try and advance yourself. So expect him to find a way to cut down to the bottom side as quick as possible. If you're stuck side by side, it could potentially lead to a lot of trouble, as that's about a 10th or 2 difference a lap by trying to hold that middle line compared to the bottom side, as we've seen in the first heat.
Pace car in this time as we get set for heat race number 2 tonight from Richmond Raceway. Pace car added in. Let's see what the second overall qualifiers got. It is an early jump for Riley Thompson. Green flag in the air. It's heat race 2. The 12 of Volt ducks down for second position already, and Parker hangs on to 3rd.
And they nearly wrecked for 3rd, actually. Mulrooney Jr. hit the back end of the 13 machine as nearly everyone follows each other up into the fence. This one much more closer to start with the top 5 already down to the bottom side, single file.
And a challenge for the race lead. Here comes a little bit of a bump and run at a turn 4. Thompson leads at the stripe, but it is all the 12 car on the inside, and it'll be Dylan Alt to the race lead on just lap number 2. And now here's the concern if you're the 16. Everybody's going to want to get down to the yellow line. He's pinched out with nowhere to go, and he'll have to race side by side with Dylan Parker for second.
And the only hope I think he'll have on that high side is find a way to pinch the driver at the bottom and force them to the overdrive. It looks like, though, he's not going to be able to get that opportunity as Leader's in the wall.
Dylan all got into the wall, and the 13's going to get turned. Parker gets hit. What a save as he tries to hang on. A second hit's going to spin him out, and chaos at the front of the field as Parker gets turned, and somehow it is still Dylan Alt who fenced it at a corner number 2, leading this race at lap 4, and everybody behind him now trying to find a way through. Mulrooney slides into second position, and it is all of a sudden from the very back of the grid, the 37 to Ty Polito up to third.
And he didn't get any contact, I don't think, or was one of the drivers who got the least amount of contact from that collision. Already a couple drivers heading to go straight to the pit lane. He might be able to take advantage of all this because he's got almost 2 seconds on 4th place, and nearly half the field was involved in the wreck with significant damage. Some great opportunities taking place now for Ippolito to try and hold on to this bubble spot.
He just went straight through the inside line. You can see all of those top cars involved in the accident. Everybody but Alt and Mulrooney from the top 7 have been involved in the accident and have dropped way back. So very impressive drives for the likes of Ippolito from 9th to 3rd. There is still a lot of beating and banging going on the racetrack. It's Riley Thompson and Dylan Parker for 5th and 6th spot. They have been exchanging blows. Everybody else has enough of an interval that we'll watch the times, but doesn't look like anything's going to change there. But the 16 and the 13 are fighting, Justin. You might think, why are they going at it? They're outside of the top 3. Well, your finishing position, if you don't go to the main, affects where you go in the LCQ. And the 13 a couple of times, moving Thompson out of the way. The 16's really getting used up in this race.
A lot of aggression early on in the heat races here all of a sudden in heat race number 2, as Thompson has now fallen back to the last car running on the lead lap of the racetrack. But it might come down to that. We've seen that a little bit in the Legends cars in 2018's postseason. Drivers were not afraid to use the bumper bars. That looks to be the case here again with the modifieds with the extra speed here today.
And certainly they got that bumper bar on the front end that makes it a lot more able or susceptible to taking a couple of hits, and Dylan Parker winning out against Riley Thompson in that battle will take away the number 5 position. But Dylan Alt, the number 12 machine, started in second position, very quickly tucked in line, challenged for the race lead right away, and has led ever since then. Mulrooney closing into the bumper, but he is not going to get there in time. And at a corner number 4, Dylan Alt is going to win heat race number 2. Moving on to the main event this evening, Aaron Mulrooney Jr. coming home in second, and that 37, Ty Ippolito from 9th to 3rd. Those drivers punching their tickets to the main event.
Yeah, good heat race number 2. As the drivers that advance on again, Alt, Mulrooney Jr., Ippolito, Parker does not advance, Wisnowski, Thompson, the drivers last in the lead lap, Salek, Sora, and Dickinson all finish laps down in heat race 2.
Trackside as heat race number 3 is ready to get going. The action continuing in this eNASCAR Ignite Series playoff opener. This one will see the number 2 of Matt Cookson on a pole position. Brian LaPrade in number 4 will be alongside him in second position. Tyler Marble starting 3rd tonight with Colin Slife in a number 4 position. And Reese Bayham rounds out your top 5.
Camden Weist will start in 6th, with Blaine Aiken and Mason Tessier rounding out the 8 drivers in heat race number 3.
The one less driver than what we saw in the opening 2 heat races, total number 8 for this one. I believe we had at upwards of 40 cars of a possible 50 register for this playoff opener, and certainly that second heat race, Justin, had a lot more fireworks than the first one did.
Yeah, I was surprised actually on how much fireworks happened for the race lead. But I think really the fireworks started really going off when, mind you, the race leader and all hit that outside wall. Some of the drivers talked about with me, such as Riley Thompson, that it's hard to actually see in these cockpits to be able to see the outside wall at times, especially if, say, you have a triple monitor setup where that right side tire is. So that's where a lot of the give and take might come into play as well. You have to know where you are in terms of the racing line. If you don't, you have what happened in Heat Race 2 happen to you.
6 drivers already know they're going to the main event tonight to race for points in hopes of making the top 30 cut and getting to that winner-take-all finale at Martinsville. Still 9 more drivers, 3 from each of the next 3 heat races, knowing that they are going to get into it. And then, of course, there are still 2 LCQ tickets up for grabs. Those coming up a little bit later on this evening. But we have seen, especially in that last heat race, that it's not impossible to come from outside of the top 3 and to get a qualifying position. Let's see how this one plays through as the base car heads down and in. And it is the number 2 machine, Max Cookson's field of control. Green flag in the air. It's heat race number 3.
The clean start for the top 2, but craziness third on back. It's 3-4 wide at the back of the field with overway crashing.
Big accident. It all started with the 17 of Colin Seif. But again, this one is going to stay green. But Seif came down for the outside. The 20 car got into it. There was 4 wide behind them. And they pretty much just cleaned each other out. At the completion of lap number 1, who's left? Cookson still leads. LaPrade from second, still in that spot. But it is Blaine Aiken, the big winner. Started in 7th position. He rockets through the chaos. It ends up right now into P3.
He was the car right on the bottom in that 4 wide situation and actually hit the back end of Tyler Marble and all of that, but is the only one without significant damage, and so he's got himself a fast race car all of a sudden, and is now a 10th plus quicker than everyone else that was involved in the incident. He's going to be in a good position to advance in the top 3 here.
See if that continues. The battle for second place is on as you see Cookson in your top position. And number 4, LaPrade hanging out about 2-3 car lengths off of the bumper as he tries to chase him. It would be interesting, Justin. We've seen drivers go for the bumper to run, but it is a matter of being a transfer car or not. Again, just like it does matter in the LCQ, your finishing position in the heat race does matter for where you will start in that 30-lap main event. Curious if it comes down to a battle between first and second or second and third, if these drivers are willing to get physical.
Yeah, I think we're going to potentially see that. Remember, last year, that was the thought process in the final shootout, and it essentially led to some drivers not having the best final shootout feature they expected after a good postseason. So it's going to be crucial to try and manage when you go for the pass, yes. But if you feel like you need that spot and track position, I say go for it. I say fight as hard as you can. But right now, they're dead even in times just about. Cookson the fastest of the 2 last time by.
They stay even, nothing to gain, nothing to really lost there. Blaine Aiken still all on his own in third. He's 2 seconds off of the battle for the race lead and 2 seconds ahead of the next closest car. So he's pretty comfortable right now in third position. Are seeing a fight with Reese Bayham and Mason Tessier in 4th and 5th position. Cam West is back there. So basically all the cars involved in the accident actually got him straighted pretty quickly. They're all within 5 seconds of your race leader. Just really no opportunity to make up that kind of time because this time by can be just 3 laps to go in heat race number 3.
Essentially, everyone 4th on back might have to hope for an error mistake here from Blaine Aiken because he is still gaining time on them by about a half a tenth a second. So he's in a good position, especially if they start battling for that 4th position, which that is starting to come on as the white flag's up for the top 2.
Top 6 to the air, final 2 laps at Richmond Raceway.
2 to go,
Yeah, 2 laps to go. The way that it looks now with, the battles on track, we're seeing Mason Tessier, the 30 car. He just passed Reese Bayham for 4th and 5th. So they are fighting back here in the back. Don't think it doesn't matter. A crossover by the 22. He'll try to go back down low on the inside. So side by side we go for 4th position. Camden West watches on from behind. White flag in the air. Last time around at Richmond. And way up front and all on his own. He'll go pole to checker. Max Cookson at a turn number 4, holds off the challenge from Briar LaPrade and wins heat race number 3. LaPrade settles for 2nd, and it is Blaine Aiken in 3rd position. Final transfer into the main event.
Yeah, and it was a heck of a battle. The last of the drivers getting ready to come across the line here, Evan. A lot of drivers were able to take advantage, specifically Aiken, of that incident out of turn 1 and 2 in that first lap. And punch his ticket along with Cookson and LaPrade. Rest of the results about to pop up on your screen with Tessier, as mentioned, not advancing. Also, drivers not advancing in heat race number 3, where the drivers including Bayham, West, Seif, and Marble out of the 8 drivers.
3 down, 2 to go. Heat race number 4 is now on the front straightaway. Take a look at your starting grid. So this time it is the number 5 of Jose Solis Jr. starting on pole position. He'll be joined by the number 25 of Martin Gatzulis in second position. Caden Rush starting third in this one. Vincent Arthur rolls from 4th spot, and Connor Hale rounds out your top 5.
Jackson Crowder starts in 6th with Samuel Garcia on the inside of row 4 alongside Andrew Ramos. Those are the 8 drivers in heat race number 4.
Of course, all of these drivers racing for an opportunity to get a $10,000 racing scholarship and a test day in not only a Legends car, one of the vehicles that they have driven in this series so far for the entirety of the 8-race regular season, but of course also a test in a NASCAR Pinty Series car with Canada's best racing team. So a lot on the line. I know that tonight is just the first stepping stone, but I think these drivers are starting to settle in. The nerves are wearing off and they're going elbows up. These are some of the best experienced short track drivers anywhere in sim racing.
Exactly, and a lot of these drivers have been working all year, if not a couple of years now, to try and gain experience on this surface and to prepare themselves potentially for this moment here in the eNASCAR Ignite Series, because there is a lot of possibilities if you get the first place prize for your entire career. It can be life-changing, as talked about at the top of the broadcast, and these drivers I don't think are going to be as patient as some may believe with how much is on the line here for the postseason.
Looks like overcast conditions as the sun has tucked behind the clouds, and you can change things up with the dynamic track system in iRacing at 104 degrees. The track temps right now as the base car goes down and in, and it is Jose Solis Jr.'s field. A green flag in the air. It's heat race 4.
And a good start for the race leader. Nearly contact, though, on the bottom side for 2nd and 4th position, respectively. But Gatzulis is stuck on that outside line. The only driver that was not able to get down to the bottom side. Other than that, very clean start to this one, Evan.
So far, so good. You see the battle for the transfer spot. The 18 car, Vincent Arthur, sideways that time off for the corner. Justin ventured off at the top. Drivers were complaining tight end, loose off, and maybe that's what'll make the outside line more difficult as the run goes on. But at least now even Stevens, and how about the 25 of Martin Gatzulis? He'll clear and take over 3rd position. So Arthur has to settle for P4. He's got to gather it up and get going quickly, though. Now the 25 car makes a mistake, and they'll reel him right back in. Here's Arthur looking to the inside.
Yeah, some of these drivers are getting very loose, even with the clouds starting to cool down the track as contact behind them.
The 27, that is Jackson Crowder into the outside wall. He got a little bit of help there as one of the cars pushed up on exit. I think that was the 18 of Vincent Arthur, chopped his nose off a little bit, and Crowder falls to P7, probably with a damaged race car and no opportunity to come back. So mistakes, not just when you're going side by side and cars are hitting each other, Justin, but we've seen it in a handful of instances now. Just mistakes on your own, getting sideways, losing speed is going to allow drivers to get 2nd and 3rd opportunities at you. You cannot afford that. Halfway home next time by, it's still Solis Jr. in the race lead, but a Caden Rush P2 is all over the bumper down the back straightaway.
And Solis Jr. scrapped the wall. Another driver hit the wall in the back of the field. So drivers are starting to get really squirrely. That driver was Connor Hale in the back of the field. But as this is going on, this is allowing the battles for 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th to spread away from the rest of the pack. They're in the 21 4s to 5s at the moment.
They really are getting some separation. Again, the 7 still challenging the 5. We haven't seen a car in a P2 really get that aggressive of the race leader. Of course, both of them in a transfer position. You don't want to get overly physical.
Oh, crash for
big
Garcia.
issues behind.
Garcia lost it on the top side as the sun started to come out and just slammed into the 27 machine on the outside part of his race car. That was what I was referring to. You lose grip of these cars by pushing too much. That can happen like we just seen with Samuel Garcia.
And that's why we see the cars get it into the wall at a turn 2. They're loose, so they're really trying to push it up the hill. Try not to give it too much wheel use at every single inch of the racetrack. And oftentimes, you overstep just a little bit too much. That could be the result. So Garcia's damaged car still out on track. Your race leader is battling 2 laps to go this time. Gatzulis still in the final transfer spot, but Arthur's within 2 car lengths.
And it looks like they're in a consistent pace right now, just 2/1000 of a second quicker Arthur was than Gatsua's last time by. It's going to take an error mistake from Gatsua's, I think, for Arthur to be able to pounce like Gatsua's had at the early portion of this race. He clipped the apron, the 25 did, but he's got some decent grip as they come to the white flag.
Last lap of the air is Solis and Rush. What a battle for the top spots, but here's the fight for the transfer position. The 18 gives him the bumper, and Vincent Arthur is going to take out Martin Gutsulitz. The 25 was in a transfer spot, and that is no longer final time at 4. Jose Solis Jr. wins Heat Race 4. Caden Rush in second position. And it is the 18 of Vincent Arthur who just took out the car in front of him in third spot, who gets that position.
And because of all of that, Gatsulis finishes off in 7th. The final result, Solis Jr., Rush, Arthur in the transfer spots. Ramos, Hale, Crowder, Gatsulis, and Garcia will have to go to the LCQs.
That is obviously not going to go over well. We'll see if those drivers get into each other. Shall they meet again a little bit later on tonight? Let's go down trackside, though. Heat race number 5, ready to rock and roll. Final heat race on the night. Hunter O. Johnson will begin this one from pole position. The 3 cars bringing us to the green flag tonight. He's got the 24 of Steven Rosales outside of the front row in P2. J. Mitchell Adams starts in 3rd position with Austin Edwards in 4th, and Caleb Weekly rounding out your top 5.
Dominic Howes will start in 6th with Patrick Moose and Emmanuel Wolf rounded out the 8 drivers in heat race number 5. And with this being the last heat, the aggression might be a bit higher up as we've seen in the past couple heats.
And the funny thing is, you know, with so many drivers having to compete in the regular season, again, we said it was 341 competitors raced over the course of the 8-week regular season. You may not have always seen the other cars that you're around on track with multiple splits and, of course, racing at different times during the course of the week. So you certainly are deciding at this point, you know, who am I going to be able to race against? You find that limit and we go with that. But for this restart, let's go on board with that 32 machine of J. Mitchell Adams here inside of the second row. Justin, it's a very interesting spot because inside's better than the outside, but we've seen the top 2 get very good restarts the last couple of times. It'll be interesting to see how this one plays through as the lights go out on the pace car.
Yeah, Mitchell Adams, again, one of the returning drivers. I think, again, we've seen drivers are not afraid to use the bumper bars, especially if they feel like they have a chance to make the pass, especially with the bubble spot on the racetrack. So I could see that being the case potentially again. The question is, though, when do they time that aggression? When do they give? When do they take? Because you don't want to be one of the drivers that have a smoking engine at the checker flag.
You'll see this start from the perspective of the number 32 machine of Adams. That'll be inside row 2 and 3rd. It is Hunter O. Johnson and Steven Rosales on the front row for the 5th and final heat race of the afternoon of action. The 3 car waits a lot longer. There's the green flag. We're off and away.
And a bit of a checkup actually on the outside line. I don't think they were expecting it. And a couple of them slammed the bumper bars. Oh, and a car behind in 4th going sideways.
Yeah, that's Edwards. Austin Edwards got tagged. He's still trying to hang on to it. He will save it after he got hit by the 26 of Dominic Howe. He hangs on, but just like that, Edwards is basically out of heat race number 5. And it is Johnson by a monstrous gap of 7/10 back to Adams, who takes over the second position, dropping Rosales back behind him to 3rd.
And it just looked like that tightness on entry I was referring to just carried too much speed and plowed straight into the quarter panel. So nothing I think Edwards could do in that situation. He just has to hope for some attrition now. He's lost 2 seconds, but the battle for second is on.
The 24 car is there and wants to keep the pressure up. If they really start fighting for second position, though, they may just be inviting Kayla Weekly into the picture. The 24 looks at the inside. Oh, and behind! Weekly is going to get cleaned out by Patrick Moose, who made a late dive into turn number 3, and the 34 came down, and those 2 drivers, both of them now, who were big threats to possibly get a transfer spot, take themselves out.
And there's that give and take I was referring to. Weekly basically tried to arc it down into the corner from the wall. 21 was already down there on the bottom side, and Moose leads the contact, and essentially basically a racing deal on the circuit from that.
You drivers going to one piece of real estate. You could say, hey, it's only 3 laps into the race. What are you doing? On the contrary, it's with only 7 laps to go. And those drivers, obviously, with the disagreement on track position there, they might just find each other in the LCQ a little bit later on. That's good news, though, for Steven Rosales.
And Howe just went around. Dominic Howe ended up getting contact, this time from the 35 machine to spin around.
26 on his own. 35 got him in, but nobody else collected. And, of course, no cautions in these heat races, so we stay green. This one has really been one of the more rough and tough heat races that we have seen on the afternoon. It's smooth sailing up front for O. Johnson as he now takes 4 laps to go. In the 5th and final heat race of the night, Kayla Weekly's night is done. 35 car to the garage.
Yeah, done for the heat, unfortunately, from that incident we've seen a few laps ago. But all these incidents for 4th on back has allowed a 2-second gap now between 3rd and 4th position. Now it's the matter of, do the drivers just maintain patience and just rumble around the racetrack and maintain their spots? Or do they fight for more track position in the potential feature position and risk potential contact in these final 2+ laps?
Could be a fun fight here for 4th position. Emmanuel Wolf has it right now, and Austin Edwards is on his bumper. And the 23 got moved up and out of the way in the first quarter. Really never got a fighting chance in this race. He'll go to the inside of the 35 car, and then we'll go side by side. Some 5.5 seconds off the race leader. Edwards does have the preferred position, but it gets sideways and gets into the 35. So we're door banging it back here for qualified position in the LCQ as white flag is in the air. The last lap of heat race number 5. It is going to be smooth sailing way out in front of the field for Hunter O. Johnson, who is going to stroll the victory lane. Final time in turns 3 and 4 for the number 3 machine, and it is going to be Johnson winning heat race number 5. Steven Rosales comes home in 2nd, and Mitchell Adams, the advancing cars. The fight behind does see Austin Edwards take it on the last lap, so Edwards snatching P4.
Great recovery from him. Wolf rounds out the top 5. Howe in 6th with Weekly and Moose rounding out the grid for the final heat race. But the pressure's on now for the LCQs, Evan.
It is, and if you thought that it was a little bit of a harsh cut going from 3 drivers only advancing out of 8 or 9, these LCQs, only the race winner is going to be moving on to the A main. Let's go trackside, take a look at what is LCQ number 1, Andy Tropiano. Therefore, starting on the pole position for this one. Again, a qualifying order based on a finishing position in the heat races. 4th position on back. So Mason Tessier starts 2nd, Austin Edwards is 3rd, and Sean Wisnowski rounds out your top 4 with Connor Hale, a top 5 car.
6th position, Preston McNeil with Camden Weist and Dominic Howe in row number 4. Colton Salick will start in 9th with Martin Gatsolis rounding out the top 10.
Continuing on through, these drivers really have a road to hoe if they want to make it. Trayton Lapkovich in 11th position with Tyler Marble in 12th and Kenny Zeems in 13th position. Is a look top to bottom at LCQ number 1 here from Richmond Raceway. And of course, the big dynamic change now, Justin, is almost double the amount of cars for this one.
Yeah, but you got to remember, it's just the top finisher in this LCQ. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of drivers try to be a bit aggressive and try and find a way to get by guys like Trupiano, because he showed speed in his heat. It's going to be a dogfight to try and get yourself into the feature race tonight. And there's a lot of competitive drivers that are going to make this very difficult on guys like Trupiano to take the checker flag here.
15 drivers are already on tonight's main event grid. Only 1 additional driver is going to come from this LCQ. So 13 drivers, only the race winner is going to have his night continue. Everybody else, you can pack it up. We'll catch you next week at Bristol Motor Speedway. Pace car down and in. Andy Trupiano's got his best of opportunity as anybody. It's his field at a turn number 4 as the LCQ is green. 12 laps to the end.
Good launch for the top 6 positions, but Hale really had a bad start and checked everyone else outside the top 10 essentially. They're 2-3 wide in the back of the field. Single file for the rest of the drivers.
We'll see how desperate drivers want to get off at the get-go. If you're not a top 5 car by the opening couple of laps of this race, then I'm not sure you're going to be able to make it happen. The battle for the race lead is the one you want to watch. Again, only the winner goes home, or goes on, I should say. Everybody else going home. But Mason Tessier is feeling the pressure from behind. Here comes Edwards to the inside. He flushes the nose, but the 30 car completely ignores it, cuts down to the inside, and defends second position. He got a little bit loose that top of the 4, so the 23 will try it again.
And that time just outbraked him to get to the inside line. Good pass by Austin Edwards. And he's trying to recover, remember, from that incident in his heat race just a few moments ago. I think he might have some speed. He was one of only a couple drivers inside the top 5, inside the 2s, him and Truppiano.
Of course, those drivers, by the benefit of not getting in and through their heat race, but of course just having good battles and good race cars, have given themselves an opportunity better than most cars to get out of this LCQ. Side by side at a 2 with a 15 of Connor Hale, and number 36 of Cam DeWeese. So that's a 2x2 fight for 7th and 8th position. Actually, impressive drive by the 15, making that outside line work. It has been difficult, if not impossible, to do so tonight. That's why you're seeing Dominic Howe at a 26 try so hard to get on the inside of Preston McNeil, because the bottom's where you want to be. Got a nose, but didn't clear him.
And Colton Savick nearly wrecked behind them, by the way, just behind, making contact with the 14. That is Trayden Lapsevich, the brother of Caden Lapsevich, the former Pinty Series champion. So both drivers thankfully able to save it as we continue to race fairly clean inside the field.
It was Lapsevich who pushed up and got into the tent of Salick, and that's why those cars nearly ended up at the inside wall. But a good job by both of those drivers for hanging on, and they are still in this race. Now halfway home, 6 complete, 6 still to go on the scoring pylon. I was watching the intervals to see once Austin Edwards passed Mason Tessier for second, using that bubble if he was going to start to close in on Truppiano. It has not been the case. It is all the 9 car, 1 second ahead of Edwards in P2. The car spinning behind the guys.
Car upside down behind. In fact, it's Lapsevich. And
was just involved in a contact in 2, and it's not where it started. The car that was sideways was the 42 of Sean Wisnowski, but he came down the hill in front of traffic, and he's the one that hooked Trayden Lapsevich. You'll see the replay way up into the outside wall, and actually ends up on his lid. So big issues back there.
Yeah, a couple drivers out of that one, but now it's just a matter of who can continue going, because remember, while the drivers not in first are going to be in the feature, these guys are still going to be having to fight for points, because remember, the top 30 move on to the final showdown at Martinsville in September. So these drivers, while they might not be able to fight for the race win, are still fighting for points that can lock them in the top 30 and in a few months.
We'll see that the way that they run now, but is still Edwards and Tessier kind of the battle on the racetrack. I think those drivers are hoping that if Truppiano were to make a mistake, they'd be there to pick up the pieces. Maybe that's why the 30 car has an incentive to get up on a 23. He'll look to the inside, and just as... oh, and there's the contact! Edwards gets moved out of the way. It's the second time tonight that's happened to him.
And he's just been having bad luck with that kind of contact. That time, just a bit of a run from the 30 of Tessier. Gets just underneath him, hits the left rear tire, and ends up sending him sideways. But Edwards might be able to still recover a good finish. White flag on the circuit.
He'll try to recover, but he finds himself in thick traffic between Hale and McNeil. But out in front, it is a perfect LCQ for Andy Truppiano, who's going to come out of 4, and he'll be the 16th driver to the main event, winner of the LCQ. Truppiano's moving on.
And a good win for Truppiano, winning by 1.4 seconds over Tessier, with Dominic Howe coming away with 3rd position. Hale, Edwards, McNeil, Gatsalis, Wiest, Marble, and Salk round out the top 10. Wisnowski, along with Zeems and Lapsevich, are the drivers that finish a lap down in this one.
And unfortunately for those drivers, they head to the garage, and they'll be watching it on the monitors for the end of this one. Still one more to go, as noted. We have one final position available in the main event. Let's go trackside, take a look at the starting grid for LCQ number 2. It is Dylan Parker on the pole position for this one. He's got that lucky number 13 on the side of his car. We'll see if he can get it done. The 40 of Andrew Ramos on the outside starts in second position. Lucas Cram starting in third, with Reese Bayham in fourth position, and Emmanuel Wolf runs out your top 5. That's inside row 3.
Outside of row 3, it's Riley Thompson with a fast car. He'll start along in front of Jackson Crowder and Alex Gratz. Colin Slike will start in 9th, with Caleb Weekly rounding out the top 10.
Continuing on through 11th position will be Presley Sora, Samuel S. Garcia in 12th, and Spencer Dickinson all the way at the back starts in 13th position. That is a look top to bottom at your LCQ number 2 starting grid. And there is a huge difference, we should know, adjusted into points between making it to the main event and not. So all of these drivers in these LCQs are still racing 4 points per position, but it is a massive jump between being the last placed car in the main event and the first placed car on the outside looking in, not qualifying from an LCQ. So everybody obviously wants to make the show. It is going to make your life a lot easier if you happen to be one of the 30 cars who advance to the finale at Martinsville, but there is still stuff on the line tonight. It's just a big jump.
Yeah, it's a big jump, but the reason I mentioned it is those little tiny points could be the difference to being out of the top 30 or being just barely inside the cut line. So every point matters, in my opinion, which means every position could matter. But overall, when it comes to this LCQ, though, Evan, there were at least 3-4 drivers, I think, that could take the checker flag in this one.
And I don't expect it to be the same 17 cars making it to the main for each of these 4 weeks, with the Bristol, Thompson, New Hampshire on the schedule. Very different racetracks. So somebody who's on the outside looking in tonight may be in a main event later on, and vice versa. We could have drivers racing for the win tonight that don't make it later on. That is why every single point is critical in your hopes of course, making it out of these first 4 weeks. The pace car is going to dive down and in, though. We know the procedure. 12 laps, only one car is moving on, and it's Dylan Parker at a turn 4. Green flag in the air.
And it looks like the 22 machine on the outside, Reese Bayham, didn't have the best of starts and opened up the door immediately for Riley Thompson. But everyone else, once again, nice and clean and able to get through single file for the top 3 fours. They fight near 3 wide behind them.
And 3 wide, way up the hills at number 22, Reese Bayham. Look at the inside, and here comes Riley Thompson in the 16. Oh, but the 35 comes down. Thompson hard into the inside wall. Emmanuel Wolf is up into traffic, and it is a huge mess in turn 1.
And horrible luck for Riley Thompson, one of the returnees from last year's playoffs. Had a quick car in his heat, and now has a destroyed one in the LCQ. Going to be a bit tough to recover from early on in the points.
Yeah, they're limping home. Their nights are done, and you never want to start in a hole. Well, the battle for the race lead is still ongoing. Lucas Cram is all over Dylan L. Parker for the race lead. It's only a half a car length between those two at a turn number 4. As he looks to the inside, you can see he thinks about it. The 13 walks him down the hill, dares him, and the 8 car forces a spot side by side for the lead in the transfer spot.
And Cram got a bit loose on the bottom side, had to work the steering wheel to keep the traction. It's going to be hard to even pull this off because of how much that outside line, while not as quick, is able to squeeze the driver down and try and force them to lose grip and lose that line.
8 car, small advantage. They'll stay side by side for the race lead. This is going to bring the number 40 of Andrew Ramos into the picture. So the third placed car now starting to seek this battle as the 13 car doing the improbable, working the outside line, stays in front and continues his defense of the race lead. Cram still on the inside, and these drivers are giving each other a fair amount of space, keeping it clean. So far, the 13 drives it too hard and smacks the wall in 2. It'll be Cram to the race lead.
And Dylan knew for much of that corner that he was going to potentially plow in the wall. Try to work the steering wheel, just couldn't save it though. And now he's going to have to try and hope he can fight back with what could be a potentially damaged suspension.
So far, so good. Looks like the car has bounced back pretty quickly. He did a good job of getting straightened out before the 40 car could jump on him. So he's back down in a spot where now he has to be the instigator. It was Cram who was aggressive, forcing the inside line, making it a fight in the first place. The 13 was the one defending. Now it's his turn, and I think that race car looks pretty good. Justin, he smacked the wall pretty hard. He had the lift again. That time at 2 as he struggles with that exit. But the 13 car looks good. This time by 4 laps to go.
Thing is, though, you can see the difference between him and Cram. He is a much more looser, it seems, on exit. A lot of bobbling from the 13. So he's going to have to try and get up on it and hope he can take advantage of the clouds right up above the sky to hope that he can gain enough grip to try and make the dive.
Noah Carling, is he going to have to get desperate and use the bumper? And also, if you're the 8 machine of Lucas Cram, you got to quit looking back at the rear view mirror. I know that you want to see where the 13's going. You want to be able to block if he makes a move to the inside, or even maybe tries to force his way back to the outside where he was earlier, but you can't focus on him. You can't make mistakes. Run your race. The 13 peeks to the inside. It will not happen yet. This time by the final 2 laps. Parker had a run, but he bobbled it.
Yeah, but he also gave a little bit of slack to Cram as he came down to the bottom side. This might come down to the bumper bars. We've seen it with a couple heats. He has to be close enough as he bobbles again. Clip the apron off of 2.
Another mistake. Turn number 2 continues to be the one that bobbles. The 8 machine of Lucas Cram is going to lead with 1 lap to go as he hopes to get into the main event tonight from Richmond Raceway. Parker, your pole sitter of this LCQ, was leading, made a mistake. He's there, though. Another bobble. It'll be a half a car length into turns 3 and 4. Does he give him the chrome horn? He stays shy, and he's not going to do it. Out of 4, another attempt. It's not going to be in time, and Lucas Cram wins the LCQ and is moving on.
Great battle for the finish between Cram and Parker. I think if Parker had another lap or 2, he might have gotten in position. But it's him in second, Ramos in third, with Slife, Crowder, Gratz rounding out the top 6, Dickinson, Bayham, Weekly, Thompson inside the top 10. The drivers a lap down. Wolf, Garcia, and Sora for the 13 drivers in the LCQ.
The grid is set for our 17-driver main event. We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we're going to go eNASCAR Ignite Series main event racing. You're watching the 2019 eNASCAR Ignite Series powered by iRacing. The main event is next on the iRacing Esports Network.
Everything happens so fast.
We're reading out of control.
It's a big mental game. Nothing ever goes to plan.
Pressure's on. Pressure's on to perform.
I'm gonna race you how you race me.
It's gonna get crazy.
Oh, you're wailing on Ryan Newman.
Punches thrown. Yeah, baby, yes!
If you're not tired, you didn't drive hard enough.
And back live from the virtual Richmond Raceway as our coverage of the 2019 eNASCAR Ignite Series powered by iRacing is continuing with tonight's playoff opener. We've raced through 5 heat races, 2 LCQs, and it is time to go main event racing on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince upstairs with you, Justin. We have seen a lot of different kind of racing tonight. Some heat races clean, some scenarios drivers not using the bumper. On the contrary, some not giving the space, some accidents, but we have 17 drivers getting set to race for points for the first race of 4 in this first round of the postseason.
Yes, and there's been a lot of good drivers on top of that in those said battles. And really, there's at least 5, 10, 15 drivers, at least based on who made it into the feature tonight, that might be able to take the checker flag. The question is, however, who can put together the most complete and clean 30 laps while maintaining speed to take the said checker flag to start the postseason?
That's the big change, is it is a bigger field, but of course by far the longest run of the night, 30 laps on board. For tonight's main event, let's go trackside. Take a look at your iRacing starting grid. It is Parker Retzlaff on pole position. That one courtesy of his win in heat race number 1 earlier on tonight. The rest of your heat race winners through the top 5, it includes Dylan Alt, who starts in second position, Jose Solis Jr., who starts in third spot, with Max J. Cookson actually in third, Solis on the outside of that row in 4th position, and Hunter O. Johnson rounds out your top 5.
Donovan Strauss starts off in 6th, while the regular season champion and Aaron Mulroney Jr. starts in 7th alongside Brian Pratt in row 4. Caden Rush is in 9th position, followed by Steven Rosales in the 10th spot.
John Leisure is in 11th position. 12th spot is Ty Ippolito. Blaine Aiken is 13th. Vincent Arthur 14th. J. Mitchell Adams is 15th position. And in rounding out the field, 16th for Andy Tripiano. And Lucas Cram just with that win off of the LCQ in the 17th in final position. Let's reset the picture for everybody adjusted at Richmond. 3/4 of a mile racetrack, 14 degrees of banking, and it has been a rough and tough opener to the playoffs. All of these drivers outside of this race tonight will be the top 17 in points and well on their way to being the top 30 in points after the opening 4 weeks of the playoffs. That's the goal. You got to be top 30 after tonight. Bristol tops in New Hampshire if you want to race for the $10,000 racing scholarship amongst another handful of real-world tests, which is up for grabs in this series.
Yeah, that's going to be extremely important as this championship progresses towards Martinsville for the final showdown. But I think for a lot of these drivers, they don't want to just be, oh, I finished 17th out of 17 in the feature race. They want to be able to say, I won today's race or tonight's race, wherever they are across the globe at Richmond, to start off their postseason. They want some momentum to build off of, and there could be a lot of drivers battling as we get ready for the green flag.
And we're ready for the first real checkered flag at this 2019 eNASCAR Ignite Series, powered by iRacing. The pace car's down and in, and it is going to be the number 1 machine of Parker Retzlaff at turn 4 as we say, let's go, main event race. Richmond, green flag in the air.
And a great launch for the top 3. Dylan already bowling his way down to the bottom side, but a lot of drivers about 6th or 7th on back stuck on that top line, and potentially will have to find a way to cut in while keeping it clean as this race progresses.
And a big challenge for second spot. Look at the 12 machine of Dylan Alt. He'll go back down to the bottom line, wants his position back. Looks in, pinches, gives him virtually no room that time in the center of 1 and 2. It'll pay off as the 2 car stays in front for the moment. Now the 3's to the inside. Johnson for 3rd.
And Alt tried to arc it in the corner. Instead, Hunter L. Johnson, seeing the hole, took it as Alt hits the wall. And Alt's going to lose a ton of spots as he tries to keep it out of the field.
Yeah, both he and the 2 of Cookson got into the wall, but it was a lot harder of a hit for Dylan Alt, and it's a miracle they made it past him 3 wide at some points. And now a spin on the back straightaway. Dylan Alt's almost involved. Ippolito's around. Blaine Aiken's around. Those cars out of the race early.
And that time it looks like just contacted Aiken's bumper bar on the left side, just ends up spinning him around. But that's going to unfortunately collect a few drivers, but now it's big picture. If you're able to keep it clean and recover, you're in a good position. You just can't afford any more incidents like that.
Keeping it clean is certainly the most important thing to watch in a fight for 7th position, where I think most of the action is. Look at the 7 car, Caden Rush. He actually wants to make it a fight for P6. He'll go to the inside, but Donovan Strauss, they're 2x2. Behind them, you see the 4 car of Brian LaPrade. He's fighting with Steven Rosales. A big bobble by the 7 Rush, who's able to rein it in on the inside of 3 and 4. And we are 2 wide, a couple of rows deep.
And the big Haas, as he likes to be called, looking to try and carry that momentum again on the bottom side. We've seen how difficult it is, while it's the faster line, to complete the pass. It can take a few laps to set yourself up. And now able to complete it and able to defend on top of that on the 11 Machinist Rush. Good pass and good block to execute the spot to move up 1 more on the grid.
Brad shooting sparks off with the right-hand side. Oh, and a spinner. It's the 8 of Cram. He just got dumped on the front straightaway. Lucas Cram had been making some moves, and he tried to cross over the nose of the 19 of Sean Leisure. Just did not work and split himself out over that other car.
And that's unfortunate for Cram. But look what's happening for second. Second getting more and more contested. Max Cookson, who's been showing a lot of speed in these modifieds throughout the day so far, going to have to defend. He's already tapped the wall a couple times, but Hunter L. Johnson is looking fairly consistent, is in the same ballpark as the rest of the top 3, and just is waiting for a mistake. He will try and dive it in, as we've seen a couple times, if someone leaves the bottom.
And both of them, I think the most important thing here are not letting Retzlaff get away. The Wonder Machine almost strolled to his race win in heat race number 1, whereas now you're racing up against, for the cars that started inside of the top 5, other heat race winners. So it's stacked up here at the top of the field, and Retzlaff's gap actually decreased by 2/100ths of a second that time. So they're keeping him within half a second. I think that's a good margin. We haven't seen these cars on anything past a 12-lap run. You're talking about 30, maybe conserving is going to be the right call.
It's definitely going to be the right call, and what I talked about at the start of the broadcast, the more the tires wear, the more tougher it will be to not just maintain speed, but to handle your modified race car. You don't want to end up cooking your tires by trying to make passes way too early. You need to think about the big picture to try and put yourself in for a victory on lap 30. And right now, Retzlaff, the question is he saving enough? Because the drivers behind have been a little bit quicker each time by for about 5 laps now.
You're still about that 2/100th of a second margin. I know it doesn't sound like a lot. It takes a few laps to get from 0.45 seconds down to 0.40, but they are closing in. And if you're the Wonder Machine, are you maybe giving it 100% at this point, trying to run away, or are you managing your speed based on the speed of the cars around you? That time, Retzlaff did get a little bit faster and gained some of those precious intervals back in his favor, but it is certainly a 3-car race for the win here at Richmond. Irritable Rooney Jr. into 4th position is dealing with Jose Solis Jr. They're fighting for 4th and 5th. It's a good fight, but it is over 2 seconds off of the battle for the race lead. So it looks like it'll come down to these guys up front in the 1, the 2, and the 3.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case. But to answer your question in regards to being able to follow the driver in front, it kind of does help you, especially to get a reference car to see, am I as quick, if not quicker, than the next position in front of me? And that's what's helping Johnson as lap traffic is going to start coming to play here, Evan. On top of that, 3 different drivers these leaders are going to have to deal with, and this is the first time they're going to have to deal with the set traffic this entire postseason.
This has not been a challenge all night long, but I mentioned the incident earlier with Blaine Aiken and Lucas Cram. Well, those 2 drivers are the ones that are about to get lapped. They're significantly further off the pace because of that accident, and the race leader is seeing them get bigger in his front windshield. So because they're battling for position, how easy on the 1 car are they going to make this? Are they going to get up and out of the way? Are they going to continue to fight each other? And any sort of hold-up is going to reel that 2-car right back in, as Johnson actually from 3rd position lost a little bit the last time. He gets back up on Cookson this time through. But if I'm Retzlaff, I'm yelling to my spotter. If I've got one in the sim with me, if I'm on the driver radio channel, I'm giving those drivers a heads up. I'm coming. It is not a big speed difference either. So if he does catch them, it's not like they're going to be significantly slower. It is going to be only slightly off-paced race cars who really get a ton of damage in their incident, which makes it a lot more difficult to negotiate around him.
Yeah, 4 of the 5 in the top 5, I should mention, do have spotters with them in the sim, which could be immensely helpful to know where is this driver gaining time, what line are they running, where are the drivers in front. As some peak drivers have said, they can be very crucial to have been successful in a race. And now at this point, they're going to be very crucial to get by the traffic that is side by side, a few tenths in front of the leaders.
Going to help Retzlaff's case. He's getting a good show. Again, it is a fight for 14th and 15th. The only cars behind them are Dylan Alt and Ty Ippolito, who are both a lap down, and now also going to lap down an incident with Caden Rush. I believe Mitchell Adams also. So some incidents back in the pack take 2 more cars out of this race, this time by 20 laps down. Only 10 laps to go in the feature.
And one thing to think about too, Evan, is it's a short track. It's very difficult, potentially, for these lap cars to let them by at the right place at the right time. There's many cases at the local level, you reach lap traffic and you can't get by them. That could be the race-deciding situation. So it's going to be crucial for not just Retzlaff to follow through this traffic quickly and cleanly, potentially single file. It's going to be crucial for 2nd and 3rd to do the same, to try and figure it out. So they're battling 4 side by side for 2nd.
Johnson wants to make a move. He'll go to the inside, and this is great for Retzlaff, who pulls some distance off of the corner It is that two-machine Cookson who hangs on, but that goes to show you Johnson isn't willing to give this one up. And maybe another concern for your race leaders is if those lappers wreck, because last lap it was Lucas Cram who moved Blaine Aiken out of the way. They're side by side again. I was starting to think, Justin, we would not actually catch this lap traffic, but now that they're 2 by 2, it seems almost inevitable. And race control giving them a heads up to watch out for the one car who's fast approaching.
Yeah, I think they have to try and stay on the high side through 1 and 2 and find a way to let them by. Gonna let by the first driver, Blaine Aiken does, but this is gonna actually hurt a little bit for Cookson and Johnson. They might not reach him at the right spot at the right time, the way this is shaping out. And now Retzloff is now sandwiched between 2 lap cars that he might be able to use as a pick here to try and secure this lead.
And a 31 machine is going to cause problems for Cookson, going to cause issues for Hunter Johnson. I just don't think that those cars are going to be able to get there anyways. They've been very even, but they need that little bit extra. This is the point in the run where if you saved something, you had that bite, you got to show it. And with 6 laps to go, with one machine in this sandwich, assuming the 8 machine plays nice, and when the one shows the nose, he'll let him go. There's the 1. He was not even within a car length, Justin, but he flashed him the nose, said, hey, I'm going to get around you. The 8 car picked up on that, moved up, let him go. Nice play of the lappers to let your leader get on through. Now the question is, how nice are they to second on back? Cookson got sideways into the wall. It'll give Johnson another opportunity to go low.
And I think he arrow pushed with Aiken up to that said fence, but Johnson's just not able to take advantage. It's going to be difficult to try and make this pass with how old these tires are. The oldest they've had to deal with this entire race. They're nearly sideways trying to hold on to these cars in a couple of these cases now.
These cars are really starting to struggle on the old tires as this one cuts down now into the home stretch for Parker Retzlaff. 3 to go, that time by. It's still Cookson second, Johnson third. No changes with Jose Salas Jr. back up to P4 around Donovan Strauss at P5. There could be some positions to be dished out. 4th position to 9th, only separated by a second. That's a big single file line, but up front your race leaders are going to see 2 laps to go.
Yeah, they're going to need a hope for a miracle or a mistake from Retzlaff to try and make the pass. While they've been quicker, they've just not been able to get enough time gained to even get to the back bumper bar, and Retzlaff has been faster where they've been losing that set time of the racetrack. White flag, an absolutely great performance by Retzlaff.
Oh, big crash back in the pack. Andy Trippiano's upside down again in P8, but it is the last lap, so we're going to race this one home. And an impressive night for Parker Retzlaff, who started it off with a pole in the heat race onto the race win. He will be the first driver to take a checkered flag in the 2019 eNASCAR Ignite Series. Retzlaff wins at Richmond.
And a great pass by Johnson as the bottom opened up. They banged tires to hold on to the second spot on the podium, so to speak. But a great race overall for Retzlaff to take the checker flag to start the 2019 eNASCAR Ignite Series postseason.
A fantastic showing. I mean, quite literally could not get better. Pole to checkered in the heat race, pole to checkered in the feature race. And let's take a look top to bottom at your full race results. It is Retzlaff, your race winner. Hunter Johnson comes home in second position with Max Cookson in third. Donovan Strauss in fourth, and Steven Rosales rounding out your top 5. Jose Salas Jr. comes home P6. Aaron Mulrooney Jr. is 7th. Brian LaPrade finishes at 8th. Vincent Arthur's 9th. And the last car on the lead lap is P10. That's Sean Leisure.
Lucas Cram finished the first driver lap down along with Blaine Aiken. Dylan Alt also a lap down with Ty Lepalato, with Andy Truppiano finishing as a DNF after that wreck you mentioned with about 2 laps to go. Caden Rush and Mitchell Adams also do not finish today's feature.
And the win is big for Retzlaff, but it is, Justin, just a stepping stone in a long journey to be able to fight for the championship in this eNASCAR Ignite Series. But I don't think literally can't have a better representation. I know you mentioned that Aaron Mulrooney Jr. was the regular season points champion. Retzlaff, with the most wins of drivers over the course of the regular season, missed a week and still finished 4th in the championship, having amassed 16 race wins in the weeks of competition that he competed in. So I don't think we could really be surprised by the impressive showing that the one car gave us tonight, and I think he jumps into a position as the early favorite.
I think so too, and he, again, as you mentioned, was very strong. He also carries a bit of that real-world experience that can definitely help you in these kind of situations, whether it's with the Midwest Truck Series or whether it's in the K&N start he made in Memphis back in June. So I think he can definitely be a favorite along with a lot of these drivers we've seen up inside the feature, but there's also a few you have to talk about that didn't make it tonight. Guys like Riley Thompson that might have a chance, like Trayden Lapsevich, who I wouldn't be surprised might be in the discussion potentially in races 2-3 onward.
And it's big for those drivers. Lapsevich doesn't make it into the main event, so he's going to have an uphill battle because the way that it looks, and let's talk about the schedule coming up as we head into Bristol. Again, the 17 cars who made it to the main event got a lot more points than the drivers who did not. They still got points. There is still going to be seeding from 18th position on back, but it's a big jump. So now there's at least 13 drivers at the moment not in the main event in a current playoff spot. Now, going back to 2018, Justin, we did eventually see the top 30 to advance. Everybody had appeared in at least one main event. So that's your key. If you didn't do it tonight, my objective is I need to make a main, and I don't need to be pushing it till late in this 4-race opening round. I want to do it at Bristol next week, and Bristol's a crazy racetrack compared to Richmond. We were talking about the 14 degrees of banking here. Going to race it at Thunder Valley is going to be a ton of fun to see. Always is, though, when you get the modifieds out there.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy amount of speed these drivers will have to pace, as well as a track where we might see potentially, I think, multiple lines break out on that racetrack. But look at the rest of the tracks on the schedule. Tracks like Thompson might be a bit of wild card for a few drivers. And then one that's an absolute favorite for the modifieds, New Hampshire Motor Speedway, also on the schedule. It's a great schedule, essentially, to decide who makes it to that final shootout at Martinsville. That I think is going to be a good balance of testing the skills of the drivers. The banking at Bristol and the high speeds there. The short track feel of Thompson at the local level. And trying to battle it out on a bit more smaller track in New Hampshire, which is like a super speedway, so to speak, with these modifieds.
The racetracks they went to over the course of the regular season includes the Legends Oval at Charlotte, South Boston, Southern National Motorsports Park, another iteration of the road course at the Charlotte Legends Oval, Lucas Oil Raceway, the Bullring at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Stafford, and New Smyrna. So those are the racetrack that these drivers are coming from. Of course, the local level you mentioned, but they really up the ante with the larger tracks for the playoffs. And I did want to say for Martinsville that winner-take-all finale is September the 12th, not to get ahead of ourselves, but a great host to our 2018 finale. And of course, we heard from our 2018 series champion, Zach Novak, who got a VIP experience out at the track. You can see him competing now in the Peak Series Tuesdays. That next race coming up in 2 weeks' time, actually from Bristol as well, on Tuesday, August the 20th, here on the iRacing Esports Network. But these drivers are trying to be the next Zach Novak, maybe make an advance in their sim racing career, make an advance for those who have the real life experience in their real life careers, fighting for a $10,000 racing scholarship in this eNASCAR Ignite Series. Of course, for this season, we mentioned the Legends cars that they drove in that 8-week regular season, Justin. They'll get a test in a real-life Legends car, which is a ton of fun for a driver who has no experience. But even if you do have some experience, I think the test in a NASCAR Pinty Series car may be the highlight.
An absolutely huge opportunity and potentially game-changing opportunity once again. And it can open up a lot of doors depending on how you perform in that test and how you do on the racetrack, because there is the potential chance to go on and have at least potentially some opportunities in real life to go into some events. The thing is, though, you first need to make the test. The second part, you need to do well in said test. I think it's an absolutely huge opportunity, along with that scholarship, to help bring some funding forward to advance your racing career, to get a lot more real-world experience in the upcoming years.
And this is just the first stepping stone, Justin, but as we close this one out, I got to say, impressed with a lot of drivers. There were a lot, though, that in some cases ended up out of the race on their lids. They're going to be determined, and I hope that everybody joins us next Thursday night from Bristol.
Yeah, I think so, too. Again, it's going to be an absolutely nuts race, to say the very least. I think a lot of bumping and banging in some cases with how fast and tight that racetrack can be, but also potentially multi-groove racing depending on how the drivers feel with their setups. And a crazy amount of speeds potentially on that very tight racetrack. It's going to be a heck of a show throughout the entire night there at Bristol.
We're looking forward to the rest of this championship, but with that being said, that's it for us here tonight from Richmond. Round number 1 of the NX Series playoffs falls into our rearview mirror. I want to thank all of you for tuning in on behalf of our entire team at RaceBot TV, iRacing, and eNASCAR, and for your broadcast team tonight. For our producer downstairs, Randy Cheneth, for Justin Prince, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in and encourage you to join us again in 2 weeks' time. We're back on Thursday, August the 15th for the Bristol Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the 2019 eNASCAR Ignite Series, powered by iRacing, going to be found right here on RaceBot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Richmond, where Parker Retzlaff's your race winner.